podcast where we take a single entry in the vast ocean of horror media to discuss just how queer horror can be. As we continue to find our way in this endless horizon of Lost at Sea-tember, we find ourselves solving a floating mystery with the 2018 puzzle game Return of the Obra Dinn, developed by Lucas Pope. I'm Marilee.
I'm Tyler.
And I'm David.
Now, before we scrutinize the smallest details to determine who is who, I want to check in with my co-hosts to see how things are going for them in the landscape of horrors that our real world has to offer. What's making y'all scared, or what is making you feel prepared? I'm prepared. I finally buzzed my undercut this week, and I'm fucking psyched about it.
Marilee, the cool has arrived to the back of your neck.
Yes, exactly. It was going crazy. I was getting like the cowlick again, and it was just driving me up a wall, but I finally got the opportunity to get the back of my head buzzed, and I'm free and living fancy cool air on the back of my head, and it's just making me so happy.
Yeah, I love that.
Now, did you do this yourself, or did you pay someone to do it?
No, and also no. I got my sister to do it.
Nice.
Here's the thing. I can't be trusted to buzz a straight line, even on the back of my own head, especially because like I do have still lots of hair, and so like it does need to be like an even cut. But I'm also not going to go to a barber to have them do something that takes like 2 minutes. And that's actually part of the problem why it can get so long sometimes, is because I have to wait for either like my sister or my brother-in-law or somebody who has a razor and is willing to shave the back of my head to have time and us to be in the same space to do it.
Can I tell you, though? I love going to the barber for something that I know that I can do. It's nice to have him do it, because I have my beard trimmed at the barber every once in a while, which is a mechanic that I can do because I can literally see my face as I trim my beard, and I have 2 beard trimmers in the house.
But like that's a luxury thing, and I respect that.
It is a luxury thing, and he puts his hands on my face, and they smell like hair cutting and a little bit of tobacco because he smokes, and masculine. It's just, you know what it is I don't even care about the beard at the end. I'm just
yeah, no, it's like a nice face massage, and I love that for you.
Yeah.
I next time should probably go to the barber and have it done there, if only because probably the rest of my hair should be trimmed too. But
Marilee, this is actually a wonderful transition into my scared. I'm scared to get a haircut.
Oh, buddy. What's going on?
I truly...
Are you worried it will hurt?
No. I truly have no idea why I'm scared to get a haircut. I think it goes all the way back to my childhood and just being afraid to do it. Because, like, for like the first couple of years of my life, I didn't get a haircut. So I looked like little orphan Annie when I was a little baby. And I don't know, maybe I've just... And then, like, I never had a pleasant experience getting my haircut when I was a kid, just because I think it hurt. And now, like, I enjoy the post feeling of having gotten my haircut, but I dread, like, oh god, I'm gonna have to like drive somewhere and I have to be on time, and now it's also like, oh, it's like a new place, so I have to deal with like new parking and new traffic and stuff, and then like I gotta go, and then I gotta become familiar with someone, because then they have to become my like safe person, because when I lived in Florida, I had a lovely stylist named Nicole. Hi Nicole, I don't know if you listen, but you should, because you love horror. She was perfect. She knew exactly how to cut my hair. She was really cool. She's so delightful. And we have the same taste in men. So we were able to just thirst over beautiful, big bearded men.
Yeah.
And, now it's like, I have to find like a new person who I could like be like vulnerable with almost. And it makes me really anxious. So I'm like, and then the other thing too is, Marilee, I'm at the same point where it's just like, all I do is I just have the sides and the back buzzed. And then maybe take like a tiny bit off of the top, because I do like having like longer curls, which is a new character development for me, because I used to hate having curly hair. So now it's just like, I don't know, there's so many like complicated emotions with it. And then it's like, I have to pay money to just have someone buzz my head. But I know if I try and do it, there's a high chance that I'll fuck it up, because I also cannot buzz a straight line. So I don't know. I have such mixed emotions about the whole thing. It causes way more consternation than it should. But and then also, like, I have to go to like a queer friendly place.
Yes.
Oh, obviously, yeah.
Yes.
I cannot go to some place that, like, because when I lived in my hometown, it was only like uber masculine straight people, and I feel very uncomfortable around like really masculine people. So, David, actually, what you were describing, I'm just like, oh, that sounds great, until it's like, oh, it's so manly, and I'm just like, ah!
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is European, so it was a little queer to begin with.
That's fair. It's very different than, like,
code.
when I was in Florida and a straight man would do it, because you can't, it was almost a hate crime. Yeah. But, yeah, no, that's, so that's where I'm at. I'm scared to get my hair cut, just like I was when I was 6 years old. But it has to be done.
I feel that. I really do. I hate having to go to the barber also, to be 100% frank. If only because, God, it's so expensive to have your hair cut when you have long hair. It's out of control, gang.
Yeah. I thought it was bad for me, but for you with long hair, like, way worse.
No, it's if you, like, even if it's just a trim, if you have long hair, you have to pay at least $30 more.
That's intense to me, but of course, we have a different way of looking at payment for your services here because of safety nets that are provided for people who do haircuts.
Yes, David, we will move to Spain just for the haircuts.
Doesn't just have to be Spain. There are a lot of friendly European countries where they treat people like they deserve to be treated.
Yeah, but our Euro offices are in Spain to some degree, so like we have to come over there. Return to office. Across the ocean.
That commute is a real bitch, but let me tell you, it is. They've got coffee in the kitchen.
Well, David, I am scared, but like coffee in the kitchen at Glitterjaw Euro HQ sounds pretty good. Are you feeling prepared or scared?
I come today scared. I come today scared. We're in a great time right now. A time when there's new television. Unfortunately, there's just too much. There's too much to watch right now to keep up on. I gotta balance all this shit. There's new Apple TV Plus series that are starting. I'm trying to get on this animated Star Wars program that my buddies at Distant Echoes are going through. I'm trying to enjoy some old favorites that have been rekindled because we're covering something on gimmicks. There's just too much television for me to manage right now, and all the while, my husband just wants to put on The Price is Right every time we have lunch, which is television. I acknowledge it comes through and plays on but it is not maybe the type of television that I'm trying to get us to invest our energy into. And man, that Price is Right. That is it's a garbage show for garbage people. I do not like it. I do not like it one bit.
The price is wrong.
A lot of them are wrong, Tyler. I think what drives me nuts is that, so this is where I get plenty of it online, but I'm allowed to yell at strangers online, and not to brag, but with my follower account, I can sort of pull some like internet weight on this shit and be like, yeah, you've got like 10 followers and you love AI, go die. But on The Price is Right, they're reading ad copy for like a stand mixer, and they're like, with new AI features to help you get the best out of your bread making. And I just want to punch the television. I can't stand this. I hate that this is the tool of fascism at work, trying to convince us that this belongs everywhere when it does not.
I can't handle that. I'm so sorry. No. Unacceptable. A mixer should not be smart. The smartest thing about your mixer should be that it has a bunch of different speeds. That's horrendous.
Yeah, I'm changing my answer. I was scared about getting a haircut, but a stand mixer with an AI inside of it is so much worse.
And I want to clarify, I'm certain there is not an AI. This is marketing bullshit. This is like, we made this cool new AI that when you push the 6, it goes faster than when you push the 5. It's AI. It's awesome. And you're like, no, that's not how this works.
No, that's horrible. Listen, speaking of too much TV, I just want to shout out the fact that when this episode airs on September 8th, just so you know, speaking of new television, the new season of The Great British Baking Show is back.
That's one of them, Marilee. That's one of them.
Yes, it premieres on Friday, September 5th, and I could not be more excited. And this is true, I have the date in the calendar. You can't see that because it's glowing, but it's on my calendar that The Great British Bake Off is back. I couldn't be more excited.
I'm very excited.
I need to change my answer now because Marilee's phone is radioactive. Like, just truly and honestly, that is why
Yeah.
it defied camera. It was just absolutely intensely bright. Wild stuff. Marilee, I am excited about that Great British Baking. We're obviously recording a little bit in advance, but that is on our calendar as well. Mm-hmm. And I think, like, we're talking about artificial intelligence. No, you know what I need? Paul Hollywood. Just blue eyes, baking prowess, and not a single other thought on this man's head. And that's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and Prue Leith with all of her colorful glasses and necklaces. We love Prue.
I need a beautiful chubby man on this season to make really good baked goods. I want him to not be annoying. Maybe have a cute little accent because he's not British. He's like, I just want Yanush back.
Yanush all the time.
Yanush. What a treasure.
What, all the time. Let's change the theme of the podcast to just be about Yanush from here on forward.
Deal. Yanush, come on the podcast, please.
Yanush,
I'm going to be so normal.
Bake something scary. You know what we should do is there was that like
the Scottish sort of the gay Scottish baker.
Yeah, he was sort of goth, right? He was sort of like into
I follow him on Instagram. He's actually been posting like some like baked good photos, but then he's also wearing like kind of slutty like leather gear with it sometimes, and I'm just like, you go, girl.
You're only making this better.
Exactly.
I don't know what you're telling.
Hello.
Hot gay men from Great British Bake Off, come on the podcast.
Hot gay men from Great British Bake Off. You must be talking about the 2018 adventure. Nope, it's all
that
staying
has
in.
to say it, David.
Well, they're British, so and
That's right. They do bake. I suppose in the sun.
Some people get baked in a not fun way.
That's true. But yeah, well, we are talking about Return of the Obra Dinn, a 2018 adventure puzzle game developed by Lucas Pope, where the player assumes the role of an investigator hired by the East India Company to ascertain the fate of the 60 crew members of the derelict Obra Dinn, a merchant ship that has been missing for 5 years.
The player controls the investigator and uses a special pocket watch called the Memento Mortem, which allows you to recreate the death of any person's remains that you encounter. Each investigation presents an off-screen audio and the frozen-in-time moment of a victim's death that can be explored at every angle to ascertain the identities and fates of all the crew.
Return of the Obra Dinn is Lucas Pope's second console-release video game after the success of his previous game, Papers, Please. Obra Dinn was celebrated for its cerebral puzzle design and one-bit, in quotes, monochrome graphic style, which was inspired by games from the early Macintosh computers using modern hardware and programming. What are your experiences with the Return of the Obra Dinn? David, this was your pick.
Yeah.
Let's start with you.
I picked this one. I first heard about this from a podcast called How Did This Get Played, which is just now today called Get Played. And their premise used to be that they would play weird and very bad video games. And that took such a toll on their mental health that they completely changed their format and stopped talking about truly awful video games. But this was one of their weird ones because the concept of the game is a little bit different than you see in other games, in that there is a lot of action, but everything is told diorama by diorama by diorama with all of the action happening off screen. I purchased it in March of 2021 on March 6th, and I had platinumed the game within 24 hours and 10 minutes of that purchase. I adored this. This is, for the podcast, this was my 4th and 5th playthrough of the game. And I just absolutely love it. I've returned to it a couple times. I actually wanted to, as we were sort of figuring out what we were going to do for Lost at Sea-tember. And I went, well, I have to wait now. I can't just like pile drive through this. And knowing that I was going to do the notes, I sat down with a notebook. But my first playthrough, I just wanted to like re-experience it because I do think that this is probably one of the best video games that like is out there from an independent perspective, from a puzzle game perspective that folks can enjoy. And I mean, I'd recommend this thing to anyone who's interested in gaming as a narrative device.
Absolutely.
Marilee, what about you? What's your experience with Return of the Obra Dinn?
Well, the first time I had heard of this game was on a review video game like web show called No Punctuation, which I used to watch a lot of. I don't as much anymore, but like I was a religious viewer at the time. I would watch the new one like every week as it came out, because I don't play a lot of video games, but I've always been interested in them, and it was nice to like get this little 5-minute video on like what are the new games that are coming out, and a particular person's view on them. I just thought it was neat. So when this game came out, he loved it, and he had glowing praise, and I thought it sounded really cool. But again, I'm not a huge video game person, and especially at that time, my laptop could not handle a game. I didn't have any modern gaming console. It was just never going to happen. So I did kind of forget about it. So never got around to playing it. I played it for this podcast for the first time, and I have played it twice since I bought it. I loved it. The first time I played it, I was very far in advance. I thought, I know that this game is a little harder, so I will give myself plenty of time and a long runway. I finished the whole thing. I sat down and I powered through it in 7 hours.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I remember seeing trailers for this game when it was first coming out, and I thought, like, oh wow, this is so cool. I can't wait to see what happens with it. What a neat concept. It fell off my radar, but then it would resurface every once in a while and just be like, oh yeah, I really gotta play that. Oh yeah, I really should buy it. Like, I just gotta get it one of these days. And I know I'm gonna really enjoy it. And then here comes David saying, like, hey, I really want to talk about Return of the Obra Dinn. So I figured, okay, now is the time. So I got the game and I started playing it. I had a really pleasant experience with it. I was kind of frustrated at times, which I think is kind of natural for your first time playing it, especially if you are not very familiar with this sort of genre. But I really enjoyed it. Oddly enough, the thing that really sold me on this game was its score. And I don't mean like a review score. I mean like the musical score is really terrific. It sounds much more jaunty than what the scene is depicting, which honestly makes it kind of fun because it like motivates. It's intended to help motivate you and to help you experience like, oh my god, all of this crazy stuff has happened. And it's wonderful. It's been circling in my head ever since I played.
Yeah, the Obra Dinn soundtrack does not show up on my like relaxing work time video game music playlist because when I hear this music, I become stressed. So I need like a stressful video game music. I think all the music is fantastic, and if I'd first experienced it outside of the game, maybe I'd feel different about it. But I was often listening to the soundtrack when I was like, who had a pipe? And I just thought about every person I had ever seen with a pipe and been like, who is the fucker with this fucking pipe? Who's smoking a fucking pipe? Who the fuck are you? And so I don't feel relaxed by this game. I don't think of Lucas Pope as a video game developer who's like, you should really relax while you play a video game. No. Did either of you fuck around with Papers, Please?
I did. Actually, I briefly played Papers, Please when I tried and I won't say failed. I tried and then I decided it wasn't for me to stream. And I played this on stream. I had a pleasant enough experience with it. Unfortunately, just trying to play it and stream and entertain chat and everything else and mod was way too much work. So it was very overwhelming. So, but I did enjoy Papers, Please. I played through, I think, maybe 2 or 3 iterations of it.
Yeah, I was worried because Pope's sort of look at how gaming works as the anti-BioWare. Like there is no right, like you have to be willing to be incorrect many times in order to sort of do process through. And Papers, Please in particular, you have to piss someone off. Now you can piss off authoritarians, which is probably the way to go, especially in today's world. But there are consequences associated with that as well. And in Obra Dinn, I think my biggest concern for each of you, I'm so glad that we're on the other side of this and you both had a good time with the game, because my worry was you like would get frustrated at being wrong too often.
I was. I was, David. I'm a perfectionist at heart. That's a major fault of mine that I recognize. So like whenever I try something new for the first time and I'm not immediately good at it, I get so angry. So I was getting pretty frustrated at times with this game, and then like so I ended up using like a hint guide at one point. And then I like near the end, I was just like, okay, I'm so close to the end. I really want to finish this for the podcast. I'm just going to look up the answers. And I did. And there were times when I was just like, how the fuck am I supposed to guess that, man? How the fuck am I supposed to figure that out? And that pissed me off, but I had such a pleasant experience with figuring out the answers or seeing like, oh my God, it was this person. Oh my God, that was the like so-and-so that killed them. Like, and like at the same, it was kind of that same thing with like reading a Wikipedia plot summary and just being like, oh, actually I do want to watch this, or I do want to read this. So it ended up making the game more fun for me because it was like, wow, there is so much happening.
Yeah. I will be 100% honest. The first time I played it, I did also use a guide towards the end because I didn't realize that I was like going to crave Obra Dinn the way that I do. And so the first time I was playing it, it's like, I really want to make sure that I play the entire game, because I haven't really done that for most of the games that we've played so far. And so I wanted to be able to get to that final chapter. So I did use a guide to help me get the last couple sailors and try and figure some stuff out. The second time I played, I didn't use a guide, and I figured it all out on my own. And by figuring it out, I mean, I brute forced the last 10 or so. It was like just alternating. It's like, all right, which fucker is this one? Is it this one? Nope. Okay, let's rotate around and see how many. Like, until I got all of the names correct.
That is kind of my first time experience as well, was I didn't use a guide, but I did get to a point where I was just like muscling my way through. And it wasn't until another playthrough that I started to really realize where all the clues were to look for, and remembering to like look at people's shoes or consider jewelry or accessories for people. And I will say that if you're interested in this game, but like the puzzle mechanics don't sound like you, there are some really great long plays out there, or let's plays, of someone who plays it and explains the logic of how they solved everything.
Oh, that's going to be really, I should watch that also, because again,
I mean, it doubles the amount of time, because you could skim this game 3.5 hours is probably the shortest sitting to get through this thing. But those videos are 8-9 hours long, because they do a really good job of being like, so here's this person who's clubbing this person. We last saw them here. Let's go back to that memory and see if we can figure out who they are. Oh, we already figured out who they were. Now I gotta, it's just, that's wild. And great that the world has done that.
Agreed. Yeah.
I love that.
But it's all over the place,
Well, you know what else is all over the place? The crew of the Obra Dinn. They have truly traveled all over this vessel, and what's crazy about it is that none of it is told in chronological order. So our very first theme for discussion for Return of the Obra Dinn is non-chronological. So this game tells its story out of order, contributing to the puzzle-solving nature of the gameplay, but also presenting new opportunities for horrors and thrills. Starting at the end, the story jumps to a significant climax quickly to engage the audience and keep us asking what happened until the very end.
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of artists and creators who are excited about the idea of non-chronological storytelling, but it is a ridiculously difficult needle to thread and disastrous to get wrong. And I think in gaming, outside of some like in media res bullshit, I think that Obra Dinn may be one of our greatest examples of a non-linear story being told.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really agree with that. I think it's also like kind of impressive because it's not just like a Memento situation where it's like, oh, I'm unfolding the mystery in reverse. So it's pretty standard, just like the story, but backwards. There are clues that are discovered by traveling through different memories to get to other memories. There are red herrings put into place. There are very obscure clues that you have to look for, like shoes and socks and jewelry. As David said, but you only discover it by traveling also not just like directly into the past, but also into different points in the past at different times. So instead of going 10, 9, 8, 7, it might be 10, 2, 9, 4, like it could truly travel all over.
Yeah, I agree. Both of these things that you guys have said are genius, smart, beautiful people. Loved it.
Yeah, and I think if I had done, and I've tried my best to do the notes in a way that a player, I think, is expected to travel through the story, although I do think that there are plenty of like splits where you can go totally off script of how we're going to talk about it today. But what I didn't want to do is say like, okay, well, we're going to cover chapter 1 first, because chapter 1 really ends up being one of the last things you end up doing on the ship.
Yeah.
Yeah, and part of that nature of like that makes it work so well is that there's a very logical order of events when you start to figure things out. So our second theme is it's only logical. The gameplay is a series of logic puzzles, some which are very simple and some which are intensely difficult. Ultimately, the game is about identifying who is who in the crew and what their ultimate fate is. You can enter in as much information as you would like for each fate, and upon getting 3 fates correct, the game confirms their endings. Late entries require clues from across the Obra Dinn's entire voyage.
So I think when I was pitching this to both of you, because neither of you had played it yet, I had said it's a little bit like one of those things that you did in school, where like Mary can sit next to Tom, but Tom can only be next to someone who's 2 feet taller, etc., etc., etc. And both of your reactions were not excited. It was not like, I was not pitching this very well, I think, because it is not actually a mathematical word problem. It is much more about context and about sort of you saying, I am an investigator for the East India Trading Company. What would people do in an emergency? How would they react? And that's how I'm meant to interpret things. And there are a lot of times where you have to make a massive leap into the unknown, but if you get it right, everything sort of falls down together. And that correct fate music that's delicious. That's fucking manna.
Oh yeah,
right there.
It's good. It's really a fantastic audio cue, and you know, the way that you just described it now, way better and more accurate. Because like part of the thrill of this game is like you have to pay attention to everything. So like what word choices, what accents, the because again we get like a 30-second audio clip over a black screen before we get to see anything. So like what accent the voice actor is using for which person, it can mean anything, everything, even.
Yep.
And I do think that there are some anti-frustration features that are really helpful, like for example, the fact that you get the fates of people corrected in groups of 3, I think is perfect, because it's just enough where it's satisfying. It's not every time you get somebody completely correct, but it's also not too many. Like 5, I think, if we were solving in groups of 5, that would be way too much, you know?
Right. So if you got 2 that you were like, I absolutely know these, and you do a third and you think, I think I know this, and you sort of do it and you're like, well, it wasn't right because it didn't lock them in. But then you get a 4th one and that one's right. It'll lock in the 3 you got right. And the 4th one, you now know, I got to go back to the drawing board for that. And so it is a constant reference back to the logbook that you were carrying to sort of explore this. And it's just so good. So yummy.
Delicious.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I do like that there are anti-frustration features, like the fact that so Lucas Pope does a lot of research into his games and he tries to be as accurate as can be, but sometimes realism gets in the way of fun. And so this ship, the Obra Dinn, would realistically be crewed by 120 people, which is insane. So it makes way more sense and is much more pleasant to cut that number down by half to 60. Which is a lot, but it feels way more manageable than 120 people.
Yes.
This would have been so difficult to try and do on your own with 120 crew members. But that was one of the things I really enjoyed about the game, is that it feels like it's hard, but it's never unfair. You know, it never feels like, of course, there's some moments where I'm like, how the fuck was I supposed to guess that? But it's that in the moment experience. But if I look into it, I'm just like, oh, okay, I see. Because David's able to figure it out. So if David can get it, then I can get it.
Listen, David's very smart. So like some of us are little dum-dums and had to guess stuff or just blind luck it.
There's all sorts of intelligences out there,
Yes.
Marilee. There's multiple intelligences. David just happens to be really, really good at the puzzle solving insurance investigator.
That's true. That is true. I really missed my calling. I should go back to 1803 and solve nautical crimes. Procedural idea. More television. I will say that I really like that one of the safeguards is that if you try to guess someone who the game designer has said you simply do not have enough information, their face is blurred out on the sketch, and a window will pop up that will be like, you can't do this, but you can try anyway if you want. Because I think that at the very beginning, you could look at people's hats and be like, okay, these are all like officers. I could just assign them random names. But the game tries to be like, maybe wait until you like actually have a little bit more information. So this playthrough was a lot more fun for me because I was so mindful of that I thought anytime somebody's face comes into clarity, I'm just going to figure out who they are. Because if the game has told me I have enough information, I'm going to do it right then and there. If you wait until the end of the game and you've got everyone clear, but you haven't guessed anyone's name, it's a nightmare because towards the end, the last 10 sailors, you need to have eliminated most of the crew in order to figure out who is left. Like, you're like, who is the one last Russian? And that's the only way to get the last Russian identified.
It is certainly, it's such a bizarre game.
Yeah, it is a weird game.
It's
bizarre,
a weird game.
Affectionate. I love it.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But of course, that does fit the theme of like Lost at Sea-tember. We've dealt with nothing but weirdness so far. I think it's safe for us to say that the ocean is a weird fucking place.
It truly is. It truly is.
So that leads to our third and final theme for this episode, which is return of the fucking around and finding out. So the plot of the game tells a truly twisting narrative of treasure, sea monsters, and betrayal. As we discover each victim and the circumstances of their demise, we also learn more about what caused this ill-fated voyage. As the first page of the reference guide says, it's a tale of adventure and tragedy, and it truly has all the hallmarks of a nautical horror tale as a result. Our crew continue to let curiosity and greed get the better of them to fatal results. As they fuck around and find out, so do we, the valiant insurance inspector. The more we investigate dead bodies and their echoes, many of which suffered extremely violent deaths, the more we find out. So I really love this aspect of the story that really digs into like, okay, what is the actual narrative of what goes on? Like, we have all of this wonderful gameplay, but it is enriched by the plot. And so we have mermaids with magical shells. We have crab beasts. We have a treasure chest with some magic liquid that creates fire. There's a Kraken. I love all of it. It is truly classic, like, nautical, like, pulp kind of horror. Like, it's almost Lovecraftian, but it's not. Instead, it just feels more akin to, like, The Lighthouse, which is just based in, like, the myths of the sea, the ideas of the sea, this long mythology. And it's such a joy and pleasant experience to experience that.
Absolutely. One of the many, many, many reasons I'm in love with this game. It's like, when you look at old maps and it says, here be monsters, like some of the monsters from those illustrations have popped up in horrifying detail in this game, and I'm want to eat it with a spoon. It's so good.
Yeah, and I think in equal parts you also have the regular horrors of the sea, like mutiny and murder and illness and just getting crushed by a loose piece of equipment on the fucking ship as it challenges a environment that doesn't want ships to be on it. That, I think, putting those things next to each other is what made this such a great entrant for the month, in my opinion. And I think the art style, this quote 1-bit monochromatic style, goes a long way to delivering on that. And how this is a 3D game, but it is a 3D game that has been rendered in such a way to emulate a 2D Macintosh 1-bit graphic where you can only use on or off toggles to display pixels. And the combination of using a 3D game engine with an art style that puts over that a 1 pixel only or empty or full does such a evocative job in making you feel like this is old. Like, this isn't what the 1800s looked like because we didn't have computers then. But if we did, wouldn't this be how they worked? It's all kind of there, and I love that for this game.
Absolutely
Totally.
agree.
Well, crab beasts, a kraken, Tyler, merrily, we have to answer the first of the 2 questions that we evaluate for every media that we talk about on this podcast, which is it horror? Were you scared playing this game? Does this belong in a discussion of horror media?
I have 2 words to say about this, David.
Tell me.
Those words are crab riders?
They're so good. They're so terrifying. They're so creepy.
The game does such a great job of doing these little reveals of the supernatural, where it's just like we'll talk about it later, but there's moments where you're just like, okay, this seems pretty mundane. What the fuck?
Yeah.
And it's so brilliantly done. I think that it absolutely makes it qualify as horror. These are horrific things that are happening. We're investigating what is essentially a ghost ship, and there's dead bodies everywhere. Like, this is absolutely horror.
Yeah. Ghost ship last week, but this is another we're going to keep having this problem all month long.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I also think that, like, while Tyler really jammed on the score, I think that the score is from a horror franchise. Like, it is a horrifying score. A scorifying horror.
That's interesting because it sounds so like jaunty to me and like adventure-y, like kind of more like Indiana Jones energy.
It is sort of the chase of the shark on Jaws. It does sort of have that adventure vibe. And again, I think it's because where I came from was like, this is the song you hear when you're looking at the Kraken. And then in my brain, I was like, well, that's scary. This is scary music now.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the game does like a really good job of making you feel like afraid for yourself at times. Like, what do you mean there's crab riders? Am I gonna run into one? Like,
I understand where you're going with that, but I was never afraid. I was just delighted, confused, horrified, but thrilled to see these what the fuck creatures.
Yeah, mm-hmm. I'm with Tyler because this is a very Gone Home situation in which there's nothing actually threatening you on the ship. Mm-hmm. There are no threats. And yet,
except maybe there is one. Dun dun dun. We'll talk about it later.
We'll talk about it. Like there's just the horror of like seeing the crab people close up. It's a big one for me.
Oh yeah, the eyes.
Or hearing some of the deaths by tentacle mutilation. Mm-hmm. That's pretty terrifying.
Yeah, they did really great Foley on this.
Oh my god, did they ever? Because it's the Jaws scenario all over again of your mind is so much better at creating something scary than the real thing.
Yeah.
But then I think the graphics really help with this because like when we are looking at this guy who's been ripped in half by this Kraken and we were just like see like this 1-bit image of him, it's really phenomenal because like there's as many details as you could get with a 1-bit system, which is not much, but what you see looks fantastic.
Right.
Very true.
But listen, gang, it is simply not enough to be scary on this podcast. So we gotta ask, is this queer? Can we analyze this media through the lens of queer theory? And I think that this is going to be a little bit trickier because this is a narrative of one person looking at like memories of things that did happen. And there's just not a lot of queer activity, one could say.
Well, not just looking at things that happen, but like looking at the moment of death. So the only way that you would have like a direct textual queer reading is if somebody was sleeping with their same-sex lover and their lover stabbed them. Which, I don't know, that'd be kind of fun. Obra Dinn 2, Oops, All Gays, The Voyage of the Atlantis. I think that there are symbols that we can read into this, but I do think that Marilee's right. Because of the nature of the like death at a time snapshot, we're not necessarily even getting a whole sense of these people's lives. The only thing we're getting is a sense of their deaths.
Yeah. But then, we also have to think about it. This is a sailing ship. There's 60 people on this boat. So there's a lot of queer possibility, whether or not there's like queer factuality.
Yeah. 55 of them are men, so...
Oh my goodness. To be surrounded by 57 men. But no, like, I totally agree with you both. I absolutely agree with you. I think it makes it difficult to find the queerness in it because it's not just the point of a person's death. Many of these are also at a crisis point. Mm-hmm. And so no one is acting normal. Right. Everyone is acting in an emergency situation. And as much as I love my partner, I'm not going to be canoodling with my partner in an emergency situation.
Right.
We're going to be responding to the emergency. And so I think the moments where there is some stillness to the scene really does help out. We see that in chapter 2, I think is probably one of the best examples because it's the seamen. And I'm going to try my best to resist making jokes about seamen because that is the class of sailor that we are dealing with. They have their own section where you can see them, like the way they sleep, what their environment looks like, how people respond to another person's death. Certain members of the seamen, but also like same thing with like the Topmen and the officers. A lot of sex, gay sex names. I was waiting for that one. Seamen, like wow. But regardless, we see them all kind of like interact with their own groups, and so we can also get a sense of what that behavior is like. So when we see one of the seamen pass away in part 2, we could see that some of the seamen that are part of the same nationality as him have gathered together. We could see that there is some degree of like sympathy, but also some camaraderie with each other as well. And so often in stories about the sea, we skim over that.
Yeah.
You know, everyone is very much like beat to quarters, like get to work, kind of vibes, like very master and commander. But we can find those true like moments of character. And I think it is possible to find some queerness among the groups of men that belong to like lower classes. So it's not so much the officers, but our seamen, our midshipmen. We can see them engaging more emotionally together. And I think there is some queerness in that because it's just not that stiff upper lip, masculine, like keep your emotions to yourself, all professional. Instead, it's like, let's be tender to one another.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then, you know, there are other things that we could talk about here as well. Personally, I thought we could find the inspector maybe as like a queer figure, because like this is a female in a presumably male-dominated field in the 1800s. Like, I claim her. She's ours now.
Yeah.
But the inspector's gender is chosen at random at the start of the game.
But that's gay, so...
Which is very true.
Like, A, that's ours, then we claim that. B, I genuinely had no idea because both times I played it, I had a lady inspector.
You flipped the coin twice, and it was heads both times. I was lucky enough to have on my two playthroughs for the podcast one time as the female inspector and one time as the male inspector, and it is. I mean, okay, it's 3 lines of dialogue. I don't want everyone like rushing up and being like, wow, this is significantly game changing. But it shows intent on a game developer's perspective that they said, people are going to be playing this game. Let's just record 2 of these and put them in the can. That's brilliant. I love it.
Yeah, genuinely thrilled.
Yeah. I also think the kidnapped mermaid, sort of being held in the lazarette against their will, them, you know, fighting back against their oppressors by sending crab demons and a kraken. That's a queer story, and I think
queer wrath, baby.
Yeah, I think straight people should watch out because I'll hit you with my tail and kill you.
Especially when you take parts of our culture.
Yeah, like, stop taking my shells.
Stop taking my shells.
Stop taking our shells.
Stop bringing your bachelorette parties to gay clubs.
Yeah. Yeah. Go to the golf course, the thing that you all love so much.
No, they shouldn't go to the golf course. We need to abolish golf.
Well, let's send them there first, and then we can light it on fire.
There we go. I like it.
Well, then, do you all feel ready to talk about the return of the Obra Dinn?
Let us investigate.
Let's do it. The game begins with the player's arrival to the Obra Dinn, a ship built in 1796 that was lost at sea in 1803, captained by Whitterell and crewed by 51 men and joined by some passengers. You have been dispatched by the Honorable East India Company as...
Honorable.
Well, listen, I'm reading the text on the page. As Chief Inspector of the Insurance and Claims. Upon arrival, you are given a journal, which contains a crew manifest, sketches of the crew, a glossary, and a preface which promises to be bewildering at first, but that will all make sense in time. The preface is written by Henry Evans, and he explains that the player can use the pocket watch to determine the identity and fate of everyone and then return the book to the French Office of Affairs in Morocco. The pocket watch, the momentum mortem, allows you as the inspector to relive the scenes of death from the bodies you find on board. This starts the final chapter of the logbook, The End, and the player is introduced to gameplay by solving the last 4 deaths on board. A mutiny over shells has led to the deaths of 3 crew at the hands of the captain before he died by suicide, lamenting that he had to shoot his dead wife's brother.
Outstanding start.
Yeah, I think that the first trickle of gameplay here is really, really keen because you're learning to use the pocket watch. You're learning to navigate the ship. And when the captain mentions Abigail and killing her brother, you can go into the crew manifest and be like, who has similar last names, that I could try to figure out who was married to Abigail. And when you do that and lock in that first murder, it feels so good.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a wonderful tutorial. I also love that tonally it's like very evocative right off the start. It's kind of eerie without being threatening, which is Gone Home-esque. So if you like one, you'll probably enjoy this too. I really also liked the vocal performances that we get from the extremely large cast. The dialogue that's used is really good. It's pretty close to how people spoke in that time period, but it also does double duty of revealing plot, giving us a clue as to who is the speaker, giving us clues as to who is present at the scene, giving us clues as to who is the killer, giving us clues as to who is the person who died. Like, it's so much stuff, but stylistically, it's also golden. Because when Captain Witterell gives his like final threat before he shoots our first victim that we investigate, he says, "You bastards shall take exactly what I give you." It is read and performed so wonderfully. We cut from these cards which are revealing the dialogue. Like, we do not see any performances. Instead, we see the dialogue on screen, and then it immediately smash cuts to our perspective where we are in front of Witterell's bullet, looking like we are being shot by Witterell. And then you turn around and you see the first victim getting shot through the throat. You even see the trajectory of the bullet. It all works so well, and immediately is just like, holy shit, this fucking rules. And then Witterell's like line of dialogue there has been floating around in my head for weeks, just because it's like one of those amazing line readings of really great dialogue that you kind of like self-meme. Like, it turns into a dialogue earworm instead of a song. Yeah,
it's really, really incredible. Read the logbook. Did either of you end up fucking around with a glossary?
I did a little bit.
I had a real like golden age of piracy and sailing phase in like middle high school, so I actually knew all of the sailing terms. Good. So no. Is it like funny? Is it good? No. Should I have done that?
I think that without a background in some nautical information, merely, as I watched enough people play this game who were frustrated, and being like, well, how was I supposed to know what a bosun is? And it's easy to forget that there is a couple pages in this logbook that are like, answer questions like, what is a bosun? Or that there's a map that shows you that Morocco is on the continent of Africa. And so there are a couple things that I think players who like noticed shoes but became frustrated that they didn't know where Sierra Leone was. It is so interesting to see the things that people bump into in this experience.
Okay, so jot me down for didn't notice shoes but does know where Sierra Leone is.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I couldn't figure out either. I had a general sense of Sierra Leone, but I was like, who the fuck is from Sierra Leone?
Right.
Well, the captain's room is now open, so you can use the pocket watch on the remains of Abigail, who has already died in the captain's vision. Upon doing so, a much different scene plays out. Abigail was crushed under the ship's rigging during an attack by a fucking tentacled sea beast. All over the ship, crew fight for their lives, but some have already been torn apart by the beast. This chapter, called The Doom, starts at the end, and the player moves backward in time with every body they discover. The story of The Doom plays out on the top deck, where a tattooed topman was torn apart by this beast, and an unknown crewman was caught in friendly fire against the beast and blasted by an explosion. Throw the powder!
Oh wow. So I've got to say, I don't want to give away too much of Tyler's stuff, but this is where Tyler messaged me and was like, oh, I get it.
Yeah, no, I literally messaged David when it was revealed that Abigail was crushed by the Kraken, and I was truly so shocked, which I think is very common for people who play this game with very little knowledge going in, where it's like, okay, surely it's just the pocket watch, this is a supernatural element. Yeah. Everything else is going to be normal. And then you turn around and it's just like, oh, we're already dealing with a Kraken.
Yeah.
Incredible stuff. It really was fantastic.
I think that, like, when I saw the tentacles, I got excited again, but, like, tentacles, giant Kraken, kind of like expected sea monster, so like I wasn't that surprised by it. Like, it was the other creatures that we see later that really got me, because I was like, yeah, Kraken, got it.
Standard fare.
Yeah. the other things, I was like, oh, this is interesting what we're doing here.
Yeah.
That's new and different.
Yeah.
Tentacled giant Kraken. That's just, that comes standard with your nautical horror package.
Well, and I like that this also introduces the next sort of big component of the gameplay, which is that you're going to start to move chronologically backward. In Abigail's memory, that's where you find Maba's corpse, who is the one who is literally squeezed. He was hugged real tight by the Kraken, right in half. And then from his death's memory, we get another death, the explosion death. And from that, we end up going downstairs. It's this sort of backward in time, which plays against chapters that move forward in time. You've got both going on at the same sort of trajectory as you explore the ship, and I think it is so powerful and so wonderful.
Absolutely. It's really phenomenal the way that this game is paced.
Could we also talk about the tattooed man? Because this was a sticking point for me, and I think actually a lot of other players too.
Yes. A lot of people have bumped on this. So Maba is Maba. He is instantly recognizable according to the game. His outline becomes instantly clear the minute you see him. And that is because the number and design of the tattoos that he has would only come from a Pacific island. And there is only one represented on the entire crew manifest, and that is New Guinea. And a lot of American streamers have recorded themselves very openly not having any understanding of geography at all, and being like, how was I supposed to know where Morocco is? And what do you mean, New Guinea? It's a little funny, but just because Americans, we don't know the rest of the globe. And, but I like, Maba clicked for me immediately because no one else has tattoos like that. And you can sort of say, why would that become clear to me? Well, it must be because that's an indication of the country of origin.
See, that's really interesting. I love that. Like when in a later dialogue that we're going to run into in just a minute, it says that my poor Frenchman got torn apart. And I was like, that doesn't seem like it's correct. But my only assumption was like, I guess maybe he was in the French Foreign Legion. And like you become a French citizen if you serve in the Foreign Legion, basically. So I was like, I guess. But that was just me knowing more than I needed to, and I didn't put all of the pieces together in the way that I should have.
Yeah, and for me, I feel like that was intentional on Pope's part to be a red herring for us, because when I heard that line, and again we'll talk about that later, I went back to this section and I was like, okay, well then that guy, I saw the tattoos, but in one of the sketches that depicts him, his hair kind of looks more like I thought the way like a Frenchman would have worn his hair, or like an English sailor, because he's kind of got like front curtains on his head. And I feel like I've seen a lot of like Englishmen with that. So in my head, it was like, oh, okay, he must be a Frenchman who traveled because he's a sailor to the South Pacific or to just these Pacific islands. And then he got these tattoos there. And then I'm also coming from like most puzzle games that I play are survival horror, and survival horror reveals its clues through apocalyptic letters for people who have died. And so I was kind of thinking like, oh, okay, well, not only am I figuring out who these people are, surely it will become clear when I can look through their stuff and find their writings, and then I can get clues from that. And so things like exactly what David was describing with like New Guinea and how there's only one person from New Guinea, and New Guinea is a South Pacific island. My brain didn't connect that. Yeah. I was just like, okay, well, I'm going to find something where this guy is going to talk and he's going to speak French, or he's going to have a French accent, and there's multiple French people, so it must be this guy. So I think that was a great red herring.
French guy.
There is only one French guy, and that'll be important to us later. It's just not important to us now.
Yeah,
exactly. So that was a great red herring. So David, I think you are a wonderful genius. This I think chapter 10, the end, is so great because it's just like the introduction to how cool the concept of going back in time and analyzing these dead bodies and doing forensics in the past is.
Yeah. This
is when we are like, oh, I am now starting to get a grasp of what my job here is.
Yeah.
And I think this is a wonderful, like, slow revelation of like, you are going to have to do some work.
Yeah.
But it's fun work.
It's really good work. Like, again, if you have not played this game and anything that we've said is interesting to you, you should play this game right now. It's so good.
Yeah. Or at least like start to watch someone play it and then just be like, okay, I'm getting like, this doesn't feel so overwhelming anymore.
Yeah.
It feels manageable.
Manageable. That's my specialty. So down on the gun deck, the story of the Kraken attack continues, with crew members struggling to keep their footing amidst the attack and like the ship going crazy directions. And a loose cannon crushing an unknown crew member, a poorly timed cannon lighting blasting apart two more, and one being crushed by an invading tentacle. It is total chaos on the gun deck. The door of the bow of the ship opens to allow us to find a crew member being crushed by the beast, but upon investigation, he isn't in the sketch of the crew at all. Or is he? Dun dun dun.
This is where the game started to become too much for me.
Oh no.
Yeah, I found the chaos in the gunner deck. First, I was like, oh, this is really cool. And then it started to become like, oh, there's more.
Yeah.
Oh, there's more dead bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, there's even more. None of these faces are getting cleared up. Okay, that face is getting cleared up. Why can't I figure out who that is?
Right.
This is getting too frustrating for me. And then the first day that I played this game, I turned it off there. Because I was just like, my brain is too much. I can't handle this. I'm going to have to like look up a guide next time I want to play.
Well, there is almost, it isn't exactly rug pulling because this is how the game works, but there is it feels almost like a rug pull because you're looking at these two guys who get blasted by the cannon and you're like, oh yeah, fuck, I'm gonna solve this motherfucker because these two got blasted by a cannon. And when you put blast by cannon, it then says, but by who? And you're like, I don't know, this fucking third guy.
Yeah.
As a fun note, you can put blasted by a cannon by a terrible beast, which is what I did the second time, because otherwise the pay and estate of the person who accidentally lit the cannon will get docked, and I fucking hated that. He didn't deserve that. It was an accident. The cannon wasn't supposed to be pointing that way. So here's my hot tip, but do blasted by the terrible beast, because that's an option that they will scan as correct.
I will give you some other incorrect things you can put into the logbook as well for humor when we get to the end of our conversation.
I cannot wait.
I also...
but hey, that is correct. It'll take it. It'll take it, David.
It'll take it. I love the artist's death. That is the person that we're referring to who isn't pictured in the diagram. So in order to identify him, you have to look at his initials on the sketch, which I think is a clever way of doing this because you don't actually have photographs of the crew. You're working off of a sketch, and an artist has not sketched themselves, which is a personal note to me to stop drawing myself.
No, it looks at you. I love your drawings of yourself.
Stop that.
Look what happens to this artist that doesn't draw himself, David.
But exactly. He gets squeezed,
strangled while shitting. It's so undignified.
But like, I love this because he is the first Kraken death. Everyone else doesn't even know that it's happening. So when you live his death memory, that's when you're allowed to go back to the rest of the ship where everything's kind of hokey dory. You've got day in the life, and that's where you can start to identify people because you're like, oh, here's the steward of the third mate because I found the third mate earlier, and this is the person obviously attending him. Once I identify him, that solves a crime from the first chapter that we went through. And it is moments like that, but you have to remember to leave the scene of the current death and explore around.
Absolutely.
It's true. Yeah. Because that was something that I really struggled with, was being like, okay, I don't know who these normal people are. Let me slowly begin to uncover and figure out who is who. For me, Anderson, our third mate steward, was actually one of those people. So like when things are hunky-dory, you could see Anderson is talking to another gentleman who is definitely an officer, and it's a little unclear which officer he is. At least it was for me. But something that I noticed when I was looking at the Justice at Sea sketch, which is the sketch that was done by the artist, it's where you find his signature. You could see that this kid is close to the guy that he is talking to. Mm-hmm. And this kid is wearing a similar outfit in the sketch to some outfit that other people are wearing, who are also kind of close to the officers. And then that was when my brain started to figure out, like, okay, in this Justice at Sea sketch and in the other sketch as well, people are largely grouped with the class that they belong to.
Right.
And that makes life so much easier when you can start to figure that out, because you're given the option of saying someone's an unknown officer, an unknown steward, things like that. And that also really helped me out, because then it helped me remember, like, okay, I can close out all of these other people. I'm only looking at this small group of people.
Yeah.
And then that helped me figure out who Anderson is.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so smart. I never
Mhm.
did that. So, I bet that would be very frustration helping.
Yeah, it definitely helps a lot. I use the sketches quite a bit.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, no, like, I was constantly looking at that sketch, and I also, like, thought about the fact that, like, you can see who are friends with each other and, like, that kind of thing. But no, I never thought to use unnamed midshipman, unnamed, steward, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
I love
I had
it.
to.
Yeah,
it was
no.
way too unnerving for me. Or not unnerving, overwhelming for me.
Oh, I loved that the feature was even there. I thought that was a really incredible decision to include in the gameplay.
Genuinely,
well.
I was wondering why that was on there. It was like,
Yeah.
why would you do this?
Yeah,
Oh,
merely
boy.
like when you do your sixth playthrough, because I'm definitely gonna play this again. I would highly recommend using that. That'll make your life a lot easier.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. I last night, after reading these notes, I got so excited about Obra Dinn. I tried to play it again, but it was simply too soon. So I was like, I remember everything. I can't be playing this. I gotta try this again. Like, I'm gonna have to wait a while because 3 times in 2 weeks is simply too much to play this game.
Jesus Christ.
Even if you're a little silly like I am and have no memory for names at all, you still remember too much.
Oh yeah, I feel like we should add, even if you're really bad at remembering people's names, this game is still like good for you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's great.
Highly recommend still.
In fact, if you were like really good at people's names, it will not be that much of an asset for you in this game.
Nope.
Like, names don't get mentioned that frequently, and occasionally they're mentioned and they're red herrings. So if that's your biggest tool, it might be a bit more of a detriment than it is a boon.
Weirdly enough, nobody screams out, "I, Midshipman Peters, am dying of Kraken attack in this moment."
But someone does. There is a moment where someone says, "You are dying right now in this moment." From this thing.
Yeah.
and it is a gift. It is a gift given just to you, the player.
Yep.
Yeah. But that only happens once of 60, so...
Yeah.
Well,
so we've got one person that's number 59.
Done.
So now we got 59 left.
There is only one body left for us to discover here in the Doom, and that is the, quote, Dane, who greets a returning ship and is clubbed to death by a man who accuses him of murdering his brother. And we're like, what the fuck? It was a Kraken, but now it's something else, and there's somebody murdered somebody, and now you're getting vengeance. So when we solve his fate, we can look for a person from Denmark and 2 people who may be brothers. This is kind of exciting. This is kind of fun. The chapter ends with an accounting of all the bodies that we found and a few that we did not find, but whose fates happened in this chapter. We can solve 3 of them right now by deducing who they were and that they just fell overboard during the Kraken attack or were killed by the beast. This is where we also start to learn that proximity to their hammocks is going to be very important to us, and all the hammocks are numbered. The number lines up with the number in their crew registry. That is going to be the only way that you are able to solve quite a few of these. But with no other bodies available, a small pool of blood outside the midshipman quarters leads us to a new discovery and a new chapter.
I'm going to be 100% honest with you, David. I never put it together, like, that some of the people in this chapter were identified because of the hammocks and where they were sleeping, and that's why they got crushed. Because there are always a couple of fates here on, like, the gunner deck that I'm always like, Ritter's numbers spin. You're probably one of these people. Let's see which one you are.
Yep.
That's the thing about, this conversation. I'm going to keep realizing I was a little silly.
Well, and it's not just presence in the hammock, it's also absence from the hammock, which means that if it says they're in the scene, but they're not in their hammock, that means you can figure out who they are in the scene. Mm-hmm. And you have to that's where you have to start to play chess with yourself on figuring out, okay, where is 43? I see the 43 hammock, there's no one in it, but it says that this person's in the scene. I gotta go find them.
See, that actually frustrated me.
Yeah.
This was a moment in the game when, like, that is too much for my poor little brain to have, like, encapsulated, and then also, like, keeping that in mind for later and, like, all this other stuff, and then, like, oh, I have to go find this body to get back to that chapter because the only way I can view the flashback that will let me walk around in this environment is if I go find that body, and there are 60 fucking bodies on this ship.
At the end, yes!
Some of them are echoes, some of them are bones, some of them are hidden away in some place, some of them are just a foot. Like, it was too much. I started getting way too overwhelmed at that point. And I will be honest, I did not identify a lot of the seamen on my own because I couldn't do that whole
Right.
like number counting, like who is who. If they're not in the hammock, then they must be in the scene. If they're in the hammock, then they're not. That was too much for my brain.
Fair.
That was too many
Totally
leaps
fair.
of logic.
Totally
We're
fair.
bad at chess, David.
That's okay. That's okay. You still had fun with the adventure.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
in
So
the
much
end,
fun.
It was great. You also didn't discover the red hair dye in Gone Home. So
Hey, I
maybe-
did that.
yeah.
No, that was aimed at me,
Yeah,
barely.
that was
Okay, I'm just saying, I could do some things.
yeah. Tyler just has different gaming experiences, I think, is what we're learning from this.
Yes.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. I'm in my isometric RPG era now. I've been playing a lot of Diablo after playing Baldur's Gate. It's a lot of fun. I don't have to look for clues. I just have to blow up demons.
Yeah. Hey, and even before that, you were doing a little Disco Elysium. You really have been living in the tilted 3D world.
It's the best.
Yeah. This is
Love
not
this for
that.
you.
This is not that.
No.
I also
Uh,
love that like some of these things you won't solve until like the very end. You just simply cannot. And a lot of it, I think, where I saw people getting frustrated, and I remember being titillated about it because it excites me, was that you can solve everything except for the identity of an attacker. Or who was it who caused the death of the Dane? Obviously, a Dane dies. There's one person from Denmark on the crew manifest. I know who that person is. But the attacker, which of these two brothers is it? Oh, just fascinating. I love it so much.
Yep. You just make a guess, and I remember I was like, this is the first one down, so I'm going to pick this one, and I was right!
Well, we start again at the end of a series of events, this time called Escape. An unknown midshipman has been cut, begging an officer to tell Pete's mother I tried to save him. The officer calls for help from someone named Brennan, and mere feet away are two other bodies, and standing over them is one of the mutineers from the opening chapter, who has his hand up to his ear as if reacting to the name Brennan. As the scene continues to progress in reverse, the escape becomes apparent. 2 women and 3 men intend to leave aboard a small rowboat. The captain says to let them go, but one crewman wants the boat for himself. He stabs Paul Moss, one of the men trying to escape, before he is shot by one of the women aboard the boat. One last body in this scene plays out below, where a man asks for his Frenchman before dying from injuries sustained during the Kraken attack. The chapter closes with 4 undetermined fates of the escapees on the rowboat.
So I like this chapter's puzzle. This is probably my favorite puzzle of the game. And among it is asking for my Frenchman. Because, well, you can't necessarily figure out who the Frenchman is right now. What you can say is, why would he call him my Frenchman? Oh, that's his steward. So you look up who's a French steward, and then you look at who his boss was, and that lets you determine who the bosun is. And that scratches such a very specific part of my back that I really, really loved.
See, now that's interesting, because the way I solved it is because he says something very specific. He says the word verdammt, which is German, Austro-German, that kind of thing. And there's an Austrian and not a German, so it's like, okay, bosun. Okay, the bosun's mate is French. Got it. That's why I put Maba as Frenchman earlier. These are all clear, except that wasn't. But I was right about the verdammt.
Yeah.
Because it's not just that his Frenchman died from injuries during the Kraken attack, it's that he was torn apart by the Kraken.
Yeah.
And so that is the moment that Maren Lieber and I were talking about with Maba the Red Herring, where the person that we saw get torn apart by the Kraken was Maba. And so that's the moment where Pope is just like, you have to be careful.
You have to be careful.
You have to be careful of these potential red herrings, because when you look around in that scene, you can see there are like other people who have been severely injured and killed and torn apart by the Kraken.
Yeah, we just don't get to see it the way we saw Maba's.
Yeah, exactly. Because his body is like fully overboard, eaten probably.
Yeah.
I will say, I'm pretty sure the Frenchman is wearing a striped shirt, so like,
he's a fucking mime.
that's very funny in retrospect.
Expedition 33, baby. I will also say the escaped crew was also a really fun one for me. I like that they escape. I like that the way to figure out which woman is which, although Marilee sounds like you didn't have an experience, but what a lot of people have said is the way they identified it and how I identified it is that one of them is wearing a wedding band and one of them is not, and that is how you determine which is married and which is donning the title Miss to be unmarried in 1807.
But the only way that you could see the wedding ring clearly is by going back to the Doom when Abigail dies. So the Doom Part 6 or something, the Doom Part 5, just the very last scene, because you can find Emily and Miss Jane in a corner, like in horror, and you can see the person wearing the wedding ring, her arm is outstretched.
Yeah, but see, I didn't. I noticed the wedding ring later on my second playthrough. The first time I was playing, I was like, okay, this woman is clearly protective, and like other one is hiding behind her. So this is the older woman. I'm going to say that she's married, and the younger woman is the one who's hiding behind.
Yeah.
And like that also is a perfectly cromulent way of solving that answer.
Yeah.
Yep, and then I use the setting off sketch, which is another sketch that is of a much more pleasant experience where they're all just like first leaving port. Emily and Miss Jane and Abigail are dancing, and I was able to tell that Emily looked a little bit older than another character. So I was able to, and a person who was titled Miss at that time would be a young unmarried girl.
Mm-hmm.
So by that process of elimination, I figured like, okay, well, the older looking woman must be Emily, and the younger looking girl must be Miss Jane.
Yeah.
And that was how I was able to figure that out.
See, only having 4 women on board makes these just a dream to solve.
Yeah, that's definitely the way that one could phrase that.
Tyler, talk to me about Brennan.
Yeah, so Brennan was kind of my white whale for a while. To make another nautical reference, he shows up frequently. He is in almost every single fucking scene. It got to a point where, like, you can bookmark memories. I would pull up Brennan, and his picture became clear, and there were only, like, 2 little wedges on top that were indicating how difficult it was to figure out who it was. And I'm just sitting there like, he's in 14 fucking memories, and in none of them do they even fucking reference this guy. Yeah. So, and all I could do, I was like, I could tell he's English. This is all I could determine from, like, his dialogue. And then we get to this scene where I think it's, like, the first mate is Scottish, and he calls out for Brennan to get the surgery kit. And Brennan is the one on the stairwell with his hand up, looking like he is responding to someone calling his name. And when that happened, I literally screamed with joy, because I was like, I have finally figured out who this dude is. Because he is really important. Like, he's in many significant scenes, and he plays a significant role in some of those scenes too.
Yeah, he's one of the frequent murderer. He's like one of the ones who's responsible for a lot of other characters' deaths. So you have to figure out who he is.
Yeah, because it's really interesting. He helps put down the mutiny in Escape, but he also does a later mutiny himself, which is it's a very interesting turn of events.
Yeah. What's interesting too is that he is part of like the seaman class, so he is one of the lowest classes on the ship.
Yep.
But he's a reliable guy that people like,
he's
and
a very reliable man.
Great at killing people.
He's great at killing people.
I think he might be one of the only people that's seen with officers this frequently.
Yeah.
That isn't another officer or a steward. So really great stuff. I love that. This game both makes me feel so smart and so dumb.
So then the game opens up, and there are a few paths you can take here, but we will continue nearby with the now open first mate's cabin, where you can see through the window and see a hanging foot of a man. Upon investigating it, you see a man with a very distinct tattoo being shot during a conflict on the deck. This chapter is called Murder. Dun dun dun. As you follow bodies backwards, you see the execution of Hock Sang Lao by firing line by order called by Mr. Wolf the Gunner. This execution is one of the scenes from the sketch that we've been using, but now you can explore every part of it, including the trajectory of the bullets from the firing line to identify just who killed Lao. In the final scene, Lau may have been found guilty, but the actual murder plays out. An Italian man came upon Edward Nichols, and Nichols killed him. Why? Well, a peek into the room shows a shining gem, or something like that, that Nichols might have been planning on trying to steal, next to the knocked out Lau, and then Nichols framed him for this murder.
This is so wild, because the foot seems kind of incidental, but the foot is how you get into the scene, and everything else plays from there.
Yeah.
I love that mechanic that you have to go into memories within memories. It's very Inception-esque.
Yeah.
Very good. I will say it took me for fucking ever to figure out how we were supposed to like qualify the death, because execution or firing line weren't in there for a very long time. In the first time I was playing it, I had it that the death was by unknown officer, because I was like, that's definitely what they want, right?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't what they wanted.
No, it was fucking
Brennan.
It was
Brennan. Brennan was on the firing line, and you have to like look at the trajectory in this 1-bit style to see whose bullet actually got Lau in order to solve this mystery.
Yeah, and like the first time I played it, I saw that on like the guide where I was cheating. I was like, oh, okay, sure, fair enough. I saw that he was in the firing line. Sure, he killed him. I had no idea how you were supposed to get that. But the second time I was playing, I was able to like notice, you can see where the trajectory was. I was like, oh shit, he does kill him. All right.
Yeah. And here's our tattoo is back. Or wait, we haven't been in chapter 2 yet, but in chapter 2 we'll find this tattoo, and it again was a really fun solve for me, but it's one of those things that like you might not even notice the tattoo truly.
Yeah,
I didn't. I did not until I got to chapter 2 where you could see the tattoos on some of the crew. So I thought that was when I figured that out, it was like another like I'm seeing the Matrix kind of moment where it
Math
was like,
lady
okay,
meme, it's all coming together.
Yes, exactly. I would now like to talk about the plot because we've been dealing with a lot of crisis points, right? Like the mutiny at the very end, the Kraken attack, the cannons, everything else. This is the first time where we're actually getting to learn more about like what is motivating the plot that causes the Obra Dinn to suffer its ill fate. So we have second mate Nichols. And fuck Nichols. All my sea mates hate Nichols. He's such a fucking piece of shit. He's just he's a murderer. He's a racist. Like, it's just all the things. And then what's even worse is that you come to realize that there are other people in on his ploy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is how, like, we'll come to learn that, like, Hoksang Lau's alleged self-admission, because the captain decrees that Hoksang Lau, through self-admission, confessed to murdering this Italian man. And you find out, no, actually one of the Chinese Topmen was purposely mistranslating because he was aligned with Nichols.
Yeah.
Which we'll discover in a later chapter. But actually, like, so they refer to people like Hoksang Lau as a Formosan. Like, they're part of the Formosan royal family that's on board the ship. Did you guys know what Formosa was?
Yes, but only because of taking world history when I was in high school. But it is a reference to a part of the world that we no longer call Formosa, and has not been called Formosa for most of recorded history.
Yeah, it is Taiwan. It's modern day Taiwan. So what's also kind of interesting too, and I learned this when I was doing research on the game afterwards, is that if you speak Taiwanese or if you speak Chinese, you can tell that the top men who are Chinese are not fluent speakers of Taiwanese. And so there is like a little bit of the mixture of languages.
That's incredible. I love that detail.
That is such an incredible attention to detail. And also, like, if you know that, you are kind of given a leg up to determine the identities of people that are aligned with Nichols later. And I think that's a wonderful genius move.
I mean, truly, almost every bad thing that happens on this boat later on is Nichols' fault. Because what he does, like stealing from the Formosa, is what causes all of the supernatural shit to happen. So, like, if he had just simply not done this, Obra Dinn would have been fine.
Well,
I mean, it really is like kind of a turtles all the way down. Like, this person is at fault for this thing, and this person's at fault for this thing. I think Nichols is kind of like as close to the center point of conflict as we can get.
Yeah, there were a couple deaths.
You could make the argument like the Formosans never should have brought the shell and its chest on board, but we also are not, like, another part of the plot of this game is that we don't get answers to everything. And so why did the Formosan royal family bring this extremely dangerous but prized shell and its chest on board this vessel? We don't know.
We simply don't know. We simply don't ever. But that's part of why the Obra Dinn has its charge. These are passengers who have paid to be ferried to a connecting ship to get back home with this cargo. And Nichols, as an officer, knows that, and he's being a little fuck about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And people have speculated that it is Nichols' opening of the chest which draws the attention of the sea, that the chest, as long as it remained closed, was protected.
I believe that, especially because every time the chest is open, you can see like fucking glowing light coming out of it.
Yeah, people die.
And one of the things that the Formosan royal family and their guards talk about, when it is, because it's all very clearly translated for us as the viewer. Bless Pope for not purposely putting in incorrect information to fuck with us, because that would have made this game impossible. But like, I think it's so cool that when you are walking through this shift in time, everything is still except for the shell. The shell is the only thing that is animated in those scenes, and it's just glowing. And anytime you see a glowing, it's the shell. And that's going to be very handy for later.
Well, we do continue, and the deck below is now open to us, but the only corpse that we can find is a hanging cow's skull. A very important sequence begins as we start Chapter 2, A Bitter Cold. The midshipman and the butcher are slaughtering a cow for meat, while elsewhere on the deck, the crew disposes of the recently dead. The cow's slaughter causes Charlie to retch. As we follow the story backward, we learn that the dead men were sick from the lung disease, which he had with his friend. And based on the medical exam, we can finally identify Dr. Evans, the person who sent us the logbook and the pocket watch. In the final scene, where you meet the first to die of the illness, there are dozens of clues. The character's name, Syed, this is the one that I think we were referencing earlier, which is like, Syed, don't die of illness, please, no. And then you're like, got it, Syed died of illness, check, thank you.
Yep.
And this is where we can also identify the others, because they are laying in their hammocks. Plenty of people are in their hammocks but have their heads covered, which means we cannot use our handy zoom in with the L2 trigger and push for me, the triangle button, for you all, maybe the Y button, in order to like jump straight to their space in the logbook. But their limbs are hanging out, including a very noticeable tattoo from earlier and a lot of footwear. And the footwear is something that trips a ton of people up. Elsewhere in the scene, Russians play poker, which helps us identify them too.
It's an incredible sequence. You don't think too much is going on because there is just someone dying of illness, and it's much more mundane than Kraken attack.
Mm-hmm.
But there is, and I saw the numbers on the hammocks. I did not at all connect them to the manifest and our guidebook, which made things so much harder for me. I just kind of went around and I was trying to figure out, okay, like, so these are all seamen. Okay, I'm going to make all these people be unknown seamen, except for Syed, who I know for sure is going to die from illness. But then there's just so much else happening here too. It is truly one of the most important chapters.
Absolutely.
And answers a lot of questions when you are getting down to the nitty gritty of who is who.
One of the things that's really funny though, Tyler, is that there are numbers on the hammocks, except there's one guy in a hammock and you're like, oh, I know how to fucking do this now. Watch out, bitch. And then you zoom in on the number and it is an X.
It's fucking X.
Like, oh, motherfucker.
So annoying. Yeah, no, I got the numbers for identifying people, that's fine. I just didn't think about using their shoes or the tattoo to identify people. One thing I did do in this scene that I felt extremely proud of later was that, like, the 3 Russian people playing poker, I just went ahead and I labeled them all as Russian, and I was like, I'll worry about which one's which later. I just want to remember that these are the Russian guys who are speaking Russian, and so that, like, later when I see them, I can rotate the names around, but that's fine. And here's the thing, this is 100% a true story. I got all 3 of them right the first time. It was just like random lucky guessing. And that was insane. Nobody should do that.
To Tyler's point of like labeling people unknown seamen, I would have loved a unknown Russian feature. I do think like, or an unknown Englishman or whatever, because I do think plenty of time I had that information, but the only way for me to have it was to have it in my brain or to write it down on a piece of paper.
Yeah, and I actually do kind of want to call out something really quick, is that Pope does a pretty good job of not relying on stereotypes or physical appearance stereotypes to try and help you identify who is who. Like, granted, so this ship is actually quite cosmopolitan. There are people from all over, colonized by the English, like, countries, but still, we've got people from India, China, Russia, like, which is not colonized, but still, like, all over this ship. And at times, especially in here, like, it seems kind of like the Indian seamen have been gathered together, and they're the ones that are kind of reacting the most to the death of one of their own, which helps you kind of figure out, like, okay, well, then this group of seamen that are Indian, if they are kind of like depicted as being close to each other, then we can probably safely determine that this person here is an Indian seaman, this person here is an Indian seaman, but it never is like some sort of physical appearance or clothing to indicate like a stereotype that tells you who they are.
I mean, you say that, but then I was able to identify the cook way earlier than I was supposed to, because it's like, look at that motherfucker standing next to the butcher with a giant fork.
Well, that's different.
That's the cook,
that's different,
right?
Marilee. I'm talking about nationalities. That is someone is holding a prop.
Which is how you're supposed to figure that out. And here you can identify the butcher because the butcher butchers a cow. But again, I've watched plenty of Let's Plays of this and people being like, how was I supposed to know who the butcher was? And I just like...
I will admit, I assigned...
Irish accent is...
I assigned cook to the butcher.
Yeah. Well,
at first.
That's easy, I think, to get those two mixed up. But then later, the cook will be like, I'm going to fry up this mermaid. And you're like, okay, well, that's the cook.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but like the butcher has an Irish accent thick enough to like take paint off something. So I felt like those ones were pretty easy to do. I will say that the cow skull leading to a memory was like a huge revelation to me. I was shocked that actually worked. And I thought that was such a fun, mind-blowing feature. I love that. I will also say that based on the chapter title, I was expecting a different kind of cold and was really surprised that it was illness. Shout out to nautical horror that we're not talking about this month, but like Goat in the Fields, The Terror. I love you, baby.
Yeah, David, I noticed that you put some stuff in our notes here about that illness. Can we talk about that? Because this definitely threw me off a little bit as a cause of death.
I think that because of like the fact that you just like dealt with a Kraken attack and a murder, you kind of, I don't think it's unreasonable to be like, oh fuck, now there's like a supernatural illness that's rolling around here. And yet I think that we are meant to interpret that this is something that came from an activity that these two guys went to off of the boat, and they brought it back, and it is just the two of them, and they just died. And for that to be so benign, and later when we get to it, chapter 1's death is also so benign. So chapters 1 and 2, which are the first things that chronologically happen, are benign, normal, horrifying parts of being at sea anyway. Like, this is not a fun job. Nobody should do this if they can help it. Because,
truly.
You're just going to get killed from, like, if somebody gets sick, like, everyone will get sick. You just can't get away from them. I also like that this is where, like, you can also, we know who Henry Evans is now. We can make some assumptions based on him sending us the logbook, which came with the compass about like Evans's background. So as the ship's doctor, he also can like infer the death of people because he's the one who had this tool. And that's so fucking bonkers to think about.
Like, there's a completely different game that happened before this one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Raise your hands if you didn't put together that the Henry Evans that sent the book to us is the same Henry Evans as the boat.
Wait for like a long time. Like such a long time.
I didn't realize until like the chapter 7 when we're finally, and like we got the things like, yeah, thank you for returning this, here's the thing, and like it's by like Miss Jane even who's responding to the letter. It's like, oh shit, oh no, it's all coming together. I fully didn't remember who sent it. It wasn't important to me. It was like who the book came from or anything.
Yeah, because
until the end, I felt very silly.
If you go back to the escape chapter, you could see Henry Evans is on the lifeboat with Miss Jane and Emily, and you can actually see your book and the compass.
Isn't that
on that boat with him?
Yeah. He's got it. And that's how you're supposed to know that not only did they make it off the ship, because again, in one of those moments they're like, okay, they made it off the ship. But then the logbook was like, yeah, but where? Like, where are they? Don't just tell me they're
alive?
off the ship.
Where?
Yeah, where? Where are they? You're like,
New Guinea?
Anytime I got to do something like that, they got spiked, that the game was like, okay, well, the only thing that could spike them would be a beast, I guess. I was so happy because anytime you solve something, it wants a second piece of information, and
shot by who?
To be like, well, they're alive, but I don't know where. Well, the only clue you get on where they could be alive comes from the introduction to the logbook. Send this back to me in Morocco.
And in the map,
I mean, it's also right off the coast of Africa, so I got that based on like
the
geography.
Canary Islands are significantly closer than Africa.
I actually did.
I know, but they're stupid.
I put the Canary Islands or maybe the Azores before I put Africa.
Yeah.
No, I got it right the first time.
Well, but these deaths by illness do not explain all the blood on the floor of this deck. If we follow the blood around back, we find remains of a crewman who was hiding while someone or something was invading the ship and heading to the lazarette. Through a small gap in the wall, we see that the creatures are spider-like and demonic. This chapter opens, Soldiers of the Sea. Scary ass shit is about to happen.
Yeah.
So during the invasion, several officers and crew are, to use the game's term, spiked. They have been impaled by small projectiles fired off from these creatures, some sort of bioorganic
bullet,
self-defense or offensive measure. One crew was even lost to friendly fire, literally burned to death while others fought the creatures. It is really upsetting to hear. Two were strangled by pincer-like claws at the end of their many legs, also really upsetting to hear, and then decapitated. It is truly horrifying all around.
I love the introduction of this chapter, because you really just have to follow these like little drips of blood back to this like back hallway where there is the tiniest little window, and that is how you watch the scene, because you can't walk to where the action is. All you can see at first are the creatures through this window, and that is so brilliant from a horror perspective, because show me less makes me more scared.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I literally yelled out loud, "What the fuck is that?" when I looked through the tiny little hole and saw the crab rider for the first time.
I did the exact same thing.
Yeah. I'm obsessed with their design even now. I just think that they look so awful and horrifying and fantastic.
Yeah. I love that the crew's death that you're exploring was hit by friendly fire, but you can barely see the guy. You can barely see him. So later in the sequence, you just have to look at who actually has a gun, because my girl Maba is there fighting with a scimitar. Like Maba's got it taken care of.
Maba innocent.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that I tried really hard to say that he died of being spiked, because he was spiked. That's why he was trailing blood the whole time. But unfortunately, no, a poor crew member's state got docked because they killed, and you cannot cheese that one.
It's friendly fire. It's still murder.
He's French.
Yeah, it's French. It's fine. Yeah, I also like that you can, around this point, start to realize that you can put slightly different but largely accurate fates for different members of the crew. So during this sequence here, where two men are strangled and then decapitated, you could put they were either strangled by a terrible beast or decapitated by a terrible beast, and both answers are correct.
Speared will work as well for any of the spider leg deaths.
Mm-hmm.
The only one that seems to be really like specific is spiked. If they are spiked, you cannot put anything else. The spike, it is such a unique thing, I guess, that they don't want to ignore the spiking.
Mm-hmm.
There's the death of the cook that we'll get to later, that I would say they were spiked, but they want you to say clubbed by the tail. So the sequence plays out all the way to the top deck, and the arrival of these crab rider creatures during a storm where a lightning strikes, kills one of the Topmen. This scene gives us lots of clues by showing the Topmen at work, allowing us to deduce their identities, including the long mystery of one of the mutineers from the very beginning. But what could have prompted all of this misfortune, especially these attacks by these creepy spider things? The lazarette is the only clue we have, and now we have the lower deck open to us. We can uncover it with a severed leg that gets us to the start of the next chapter, Unholy Captives.
I love this lightning strike also. I want to start off right there. I think the lightning strike is an incredibly animated scene, and it is one of the first times that the investigator is put in a weird physical space, because you are climbing the ropes of the ship.
That was when I realized
so cool.
Just like there's such a wonderful escalation in this game of various types, and one of them is like, you are not just walking around, my friend. You can be anywhere to figure out this mystery. And I think that's so cool. I also just feel like this sequence is very stellar from like a dialogue and sound effects perspective, because there is so much going on. But the dialogue that's being spoken, it feels like very like mythic in terms of like, we're at sea, the storm's rolling in, be careful, the lightning. And then we jump to someone getting struck by lightning, which is so incredibly like outrageous to have happen. But here it is, it's happening, and it's just one of the horrors from being at sea in the early 18th century, like or 17th century. 19th. God. It's just great.
Yeah.
It's great stuff. It really kind of like, if I was a member of the crew, I would totally be like, I'm starting to feel like this voyage is cursed, just because there have been already so many deaths. I mean, someone dying on day one is usually enough to get members of the crew to be like, okay, I can't be here.
Yeah, we gotta go.
I know I'm gonna get paid, but I can't be here. This is gonna be a cursed voyage.
Yeah.
Well, in the next set of scenes, we hear the final moments of John Naples' life, having been stabbed by the captain's steward, who seems to have lost his mind about this curse that those things carry. Following bodies backwards, we watch the crew load mermaids into the lazarette, while the cook gets hit by the creature's tail and a crew member is crushed from the falling cargo of the creatures being brought back. Before the cook is murdered, he mentions seeing a pretty shell on the mermaid. As the chapter gets back to the beginning, we see the origin of bringing back these captives, who spike a few of the crew on the deck. They have been brought back along with the Formosan chest that we have seen a couple times. Could these be related? The chapter closes, and while we may have solved some fates, the whole story still has a lot of questions for us. Where did these mermaids come from? 3 dead bodies on the deck are going to take us into the next chapter for some answers.
I love the humor that we actually get in this scene. It's kind of a nice break, because we've just had so much like high intensity stress and horrible deaths and everything. But there's a little bit of dark humor that happens in this sequence where Henry Evans is basically overseeing his surgeon's mate try to clean up and stamp the wounding or the bleeding from poor John Naples.
Yeah.
And Henry Evans is just so like disconnected from it. Like he just has like the very professional like ship's doctor kind of mentality of just like, oh, well, this isn't that bad. I've seen worse. And now knowing about the compass,
yes, he has seen worse. He literally has seen maybe hundreds of people die with this fucking thing.
Yeah. And then meanwhile, the captain is just talking about like, he's just talking shit about his steward.
Yeah.
And it's all kind of like, and then at the end, like the very end of that flashback sequence is Henry saying, where's his leg? And that was the thing that we had to use to go back into the past to begin with.
Right. Yeah. I also love that the captain's steward is literally the last crew that you can solve. It is the final one. And it is wild how long we will tread water between here and there.
But in a good way.
Oh,
tread water. I see what you're doing.
But the lazarette remains a mystery. It is locked. There is no way to get into the lazarette.
Because we also, we haven't even mentioned this. In our reference book, all of the chapter names are laid out.
Yeah.
At the very beginning, they're all blank, and slowly over time they get filled in with pictures and so on. One of the things that's in here is Part 8, Chapter 8, The Bargain, which specifically has a note on there saying, this will be a secret until you have returned this book to me. And, kind of keeping that in mind, you start to realize, as you can't identify who the captain's steward is and what his fate is for the longest time, the lazarette must be connected to the bargain.
Yeah.
Especially because we do get, kind of sort of foreshadowing about it way, way earlier when the bosun is killed. And they ask what happened to the Kraken. And they say the captain went below deck and did something to make the Kraken go away.
You know, now that you say that, Tyler, I think we need to celebrate Henry Evans as a queer hero, because only a camp queen would be like, there's a cool final part of this story, but you got to do some work for me first.
That's fair.
That's so real. I love that. And also to continue my obliviousness around Henry Evans, I will say I never noticed that the lazarette was going to be involved with the calling. Never. I never put it together. I was just going do. bopping along, never put pieces together. Oh boy.
Can I just add one thing before I move on to the next section? And now it's that, David, you have brought up that Henry Evans is a queer hero, and I think that is true because he also wears a fruity little cravat.
He truly is the gayest looking one on the ship.
God bless. I love that man.
And that,
okay, so for
that is including a man who is in a French striped shirt, who also
yes,
who's not gonna lie, Tyler, I'm surprised we didn't talk about it, but is a graduate of the Arbogast School of Portly Gentlemen.
That's true.
Just
I would say there are several contestants.
Yeah.
So our next chapter is called The Calling, and it begins at the end, as so many of our previous chapters had, with second mate Edward Nichols announcing that he has arrived back with treasure, only to immediately be shot by one of the Formosan guards aboard the Obra Dinn. As the scenes play back, we learn that the treasure was both the mysterious Formosan chest and the mermaids we saw earlier. The life rafts were attacked by these mermaids, but an activation of the relic in the Formosan chest rendered the mermaids docile or inert. It turns out this group intended to kidnap the Formosans and their chests and head for the Canary Islands before the attack, because this entire sequence is depicted at sea, and you are walking around on water like Jesus, watching all of this happen. It is so
it rules.
Cool. It is so cool. So from here, you can make deductions for almost everyone in the crew and their fates. The tasks become easier as you solve more, allowing the final pieces to come together, but some of the journal remains unlocked, namely Chapter 1.
I have to say, because Tyler mentioned the water, one of my favorite weird things is as you walk around the water, it makes the same clip-cloppy walking sound as you get on the ship, because you aren't actually walking in the water. This is all sort of memory and internal. And one of the things we haven't mentioned is to exit the memories, a door appears, and you must walk back through the door to sort of let yourself out. It is like you are entering the compass every time you are remembering these things.
Yeah, this whole
it's
sequence,
like a weird echo too.
It does have a very, very echoey quality of a footstep.
It's an eerie environment to be in, which I love. It's just more of that eeriness without actually being threatening. That makes this, I think, such like a perfect part of Lost at Sea-tember. Like it really is. Like it fits in so neatly. This sequence in particular is my favorite. I love that it takes us off of the Obra Dinn and it plays out like a miniature disaster, like from beginning to end. But it also answers so many questions about what the hell is going on with the chest, what the hell is going on with these shells and these mermaids, but it also ends up asking more questions after answering those previous ones, which is chef's kiss. I love that in horror. So good.
So good. I love the narrative way of like chaining these deaths, because it truly goes from one to the other, and like you see all of these corpses left over on the boats and you like travel backwards as these things happen, and it just rules.
Yeah, this was honestly like the snappiest, like, okay, so it's got to be this person is talking to that person, this person is like, we've seen him closely associated with the second mate Nichols, and like if you go look at Justice at Sea, you can see his steward is nearby him, so it's like, oh my god, it makes sense. And then of course it's
all tracking.
We have like more of the story about the Formosans and like the members of the Formosan royal family. Like this, the main noble ends up being the one to like call off the mermaid attack, but it is still a tragedy at heart, and so all of these people that we care about end up dying. And that, I think, is also what makes this so invigorating, is that we actually start to care about these people. Some of them we really hate. Some of them we don't really have too much of an opinion on, but we like seeing their relationships with other people. And then others are the only ones that seem to be like the most heroic in a group of people who are not really heroes. And it's so wonderful to see that kind of play out, and to like, because like we fucking hate Nichols, and to have this kind of connection to 60 crew members is crazy, and it really is such a testament to how good this story is.
Yeah, and this fucker is really responsible for almost every death on the ship.
That is what I'm saying. He really honestly does like kill almost everybody here in some way or another, except for like the first couple 4 deaths that happened in the first 2 chapters. And like it's insane the way that like the narrative works and weaves here. And also, can I just say, Nichols is a big old coward. Because as this is all going on, he is like there's one of the people who's like, Nichols, shoot him, and like he's
Right.
he's shot by like the Formosa guard at the end, but like before that point, he's like hiding in the bottom of like this small boat, and all of his men around him are being killed, and he does nothing to help them. It's insane. And like you can see like if you like pay attention to the details, some people are being like pulled off the boat by different mermaids. It's just it rules. And also the mermaid design is incredible. They're kind of like lionfish.
Oh my God,
They're so good. They're
It's so
very
good.
Yeah, we haven't talked about the mermaids, but they have like 4 mammaries. So like if you thought it didn't make sense for a memory to have breasts before, oh boy. But they've also got spikes in their back. The shells seem to be attached to their bodies, which makes even more sense why they would be really pissed off if you take one of their shells. Like, and they're scary. Like they're like legit scary.
Yeah.
It's
They got
so
claws,
and
it's great. It's so great.
so good.
It's so good. And like the way that the mermaids enter this scene is phenomenal. Because like these boats are like out in the water, and like until like as you go along to the first death in this chain, they are speared by a mermaid like in the distance who just like fucking takes a motherfucker out and then attack these boats.
Yeah.
It rules.
They seem very formidable.
Yeah. And then the Formosan noble, I think his name is Ilbang.
Yeah.
Like is just extremely John Wick in this sequence, because not only is he able to get to like another, like he's able to cut himself free, he's able to just barely dodge by an inch the spear. He uses the spear to cut himself free. He's able to get to the other boat. He's able to stop the mermaid attack. The treasure chest like stuns all the mermaids or something. It's very like Raiders of the Lost Ark in terms of energy. It's so great. And then of course he unfortunately dies.
Yeah.
Because he puts his hand in like the liquid metal or whatever is keeping
and
the shell.
Fire,
whatever
else.
knocks out the mermaids, and we'll see this again later, burns the user. Like there's a cost to this action.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Which I think is honestly like another part of the mysticism of the sea.
Yeah.
That really works
You gotta
here.
pay a price.
Like yeah.
You fuck around, you find out.
You fuck around, you find out. And the sea is one of those things where it's like you got to respect and fear it. As we're going to talk about that a lot when we talk about the lighthouse next week.
Oh yeah.
So it's down to the cargo deck, which helps fill in the first deaths aboard the Obra Dinn. First remains in a barrel tell the sad story of an unnamed stowaway who died when some cargo he was hiding in fell, but he was not the only victim of this accident. Samuel Peters, who was below the loose cargo and was crushed when it fell, which led to his brother to seek revenge against the one he feels was responsible, who is, as we can see, an innocent bystander simply standing there. And now that we have found all of these findable deaths, you will hear the sound of a storm coming and a call from the rower who brought us aboard the Obra Dinn. The player can continue to investigate, but the game now can be finished in one of 3 ways: with an incomplete logbook full of errors, an incomplete logbook with some errors, and an incomplete logbook with every fate that can be solved completed.
Yeah, so the only hint I gave Tyler and Marilee before all this was a warning.
A warning?
Now, a warning now, that the call from the rowboat was not a command. You did not need to follow that call, because I think the first time I played it, I was like, oh shit, I gotta go. And that would be quite a bummer at this point in time in the game. So you can stay safely aboard the Obra Dinn until everything is solved. Now, I know that we solved all these, but did either of you watch either of the 2 other endings? They are not as enjoyable.
No, again, I wanted that first time. I was like, I gotta make sure to get all of the things. And then the second time I was playing, I'm here to win, and I brute forced the last couple.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about them when we get to the end, then.
I justified my use of looking up all the answers before I left the Obra Dinn. I justified it by saying, like, well, I gotta know 100% for the podcast. Right. So really cheating is not just acceptable, it's warranted.
Yeah, like, we had to, Tyler. We had to do it.
You had to.
It wouldn't be prudent not to.
I think you got addicted to that little noise, and the noise was controlling you.
The noise was controlling me.
Yeah.
It's possible. I don't think so, though. I think it was just responsible podcastering.
Either way, I'm going to go back to play the game, and I'm just going to solve all the fates just so I could hear that little...
Oh, it's such a good noise.
Listen, I highly recommend playing the game again. Because again, like,
game.
we have a better understanding of how the game is supposed to work now. And also, we know from David, we're supposed to be looking at these motherfuckers' shoes.
Shoes, jewelry. It's so wild. Tyler, did you get to a point where things did start to click into place?
Yeah. So thankfully, like, around the calling, it was just like, okay, well, now it's got to be this person. I've taken care of this person. I've taken care of this person. And like, it certainly helped out a lot. I ended up having to use like a hint or nudge guide from Steam. So thank you to whoever that author is on Steam. Check him out. But you know, that definitely helped out because it was just very vague clues, but it helped me realize, like, okay, I got to go back to this chapter. I got to go back to that chapter. But at that point, it was also just like, I cannot keep running around, and it's really kind of more of a jog with the character's movement speed between 4 different levels of this ship, trying to find a corpse when there are 60 more corpses, so that I can go jumping from one corpse into another corpse through their memory, and it ended up just being kind of too much. And then I was like, I do not have the brain space. It was also like, I was hungry and I had a headache, which is neither are very good mentalities to have when playing this game.
No,
so,
this is a full belly safe head game.
Yeah. So I did find it satisfying in some ways. Things did start to come together very domino like, but at other points I was just like, fuck it, man.
Yeah. Well, we will assume for the purposes of our conversation that we all solved everything, and the thing that tells the player you're safe to leave is you receive a message that says there's nothing left to do aboard the Obra Dinn.
Bless them for saying that. So helpful.
Bless them. Green flag. The investigator returns, and 1 week later, the player gets to read the filed report of the insurance assessment with the payments and estate forfeitures of everyone on board. Your signature then affixed, you receive a note that the pocket watch remained in your possession, and you returned the book to Henry Evans in Morocco. 1 year later, you are in your study when your maid answers the door to receive a package which she brings to you. Inside is a note from Jane Bird thanking you for returning the book, and a, quote, means to complete it with a dead monkey's paw. The final chapter, The Bargain, can last be completed. Momentum mortem in hand, you see the last moment of life of the pet monkey Dr. Evans has kept. The key to the door was lost, so Evans tied a string to his monkey's paw, threw him into the locked lazarette, and shot the monkey. Inside, you can finally reveal the fates of the last 2 crew and the climax that led to the mutiny aboard the Obra Dinn. After the vicious and repeated attacks, the captain came to bargain with the mermaids, killing 2 and ultimately releasing the last one in order to end the assaults from the spider-like creatures and the Kraken. The third mate, Martin Perot, and 2 stewards later come to the assistance of the remaining mermaid, but Perot is fatally wounded in doing so. With his dying breath, he makes a deal with the mermaid. He will release her with her shell, and the mermaid will take the Obra Dinn home, thus answering the mystery of how the ship came back to its port. The case solved, the investigator places the logbook on the shelf as the story and the mystery have now come to a close.
Great ending.
Just a great ending. It is wild to me because contemporary reviews of both this and Papers, Please criticized the endings, and I think this ending is a home fucking run grand slam out of the park.
Who didn't like this? I want names.
Seriously, this is such a stellar ending. First of all, we have another one of those earwormy loans of dialogue where at the end of Evans and the other stewards investigating the lazarette, someone just asked Dr. Evans, "What are you up to?" And Evans just says, "Nothing good." And then blam! And then you just see the dead monkey inside the lazarette.
Yeah. Oh, the action of using the monkey to discover this is so cruel, but the way Evans delivers the dialogue, it's genius. This is actually, you know what? I want a prequel that's just Dr. Evans fucking around with this pocket watch.
For real.
Yeah.
I literally never, up until like the moment we get this book, never put it together to me, and I just absolutely cannot believe that I did not put those pieces together. Very silly.
Oh, but it feels so good now. Hearing like I literally have goosebumps actually thinking about it, because Evans is such like a background character. Like, he's important, but he's never the focal point in any scene. And then suddenly here he is becoming the focal point, and it's like this man actually has been like fucking Obi-Wan Kenobi this whole time.
Yes,
it's like if we were just hanging out with Ben Kenobi for all of A New Hope, and then right before he gets killed by Darth Vader, he's just like, "Oh, by the way, I am your old master, Obi-Wan Kenobi," and then dead. So good. This is a brilliant fucking ending.
Yes. The final moment of putting the book onto the shelf also sort of speaks to the finality of the experience, because it is just done. It is just done. And I don't know, I like teared up a little bit when the final animatic played, and it just was very powerful. The music was swelling. I felt like I had lived through something very important.
Yeah, because like now that we know who Evans is, who Emily is, and those are the only two characters that we receive any communication from in the present time. Like, it feels so important to them, and we know how important it is to them because we have just lived through it. And we've invested so much time and energy and emotions, from being excited to being angry to being sad. Like, this is the broad spectrum of emotions bound in a game. David, I didn't get teared up or anything, but I felt the same kind of emotional catharsis that I feel whenever like I was in high school and it was the end of the year, and it was like sad that we were all leaving, but we would see each other again. But those memories are done. They're gone, and they're never coming back, but we still have them forever. And putting them on the bookshelf like that, it's that same feeling. And I love that. It's such... Pope is so wonderful at causing you, the player, to experience emotion in his little digital people that he has created. He did it with Papers, Please. He did it with this. It's brilliant.
It's really good.
So... David, you have some wonderful notes here about like the actual like logistics behind like the insurance breakdown. Can you tell us more about that?
So if you solved all the fates, the full payout from the Honorable East India Company is £29,260. That is roughly £3.5 million in today's spending money. Just quick mental math, somewhere around 5.2 million US dollars. This should have ended the East India Company. Like, the Obra Dinn insured this voyage and should not have.
Yeah, especially because like I think there's even some description about how the Obra Dinn is barely held together as is.
Yes, yeah.
So this would have been quite faulty, but like even watching the whole information play out, I'm just like, I'm not converting to modern USD or anything. Right. So I'm just like, that doesn't seem like a lot. Oh, well, the captain's estate has been seized because he died by suicide, which back then is totally verboten. It's very illegal. So
right. Or like Evans' dereliction of duty. Like, we are taking everything he owns, which is why he's in fucking Morocco.
Yeah. To clarify, I want to put my position. I guessed that they were in Africa. I was like kind of trying. I was like, why did I say that? It's because even though the Canary Islands are closer, they're much smaller. So if people still didn't know where they are, I figured they had gone to Africa instead. Sorry, I had to backward date myself. It's like, why did I think that? And I stand by that choice.
Well, I would like to bring up a really cool thing that you really only realize after this chapter has ended, and then it's just like in retrospect, oh, holy shit, one final surprise from Pope. And it's that when you were walking around on the Obra Dinn, you can see that there is some light shining in the water. And it's not super important or anything. Like, it kind of catches your attention. When I saw it, I was just like, oh, it must be the moon being reflected, or just something like that. But it's not critically important because I'm on the ship. It's over there. I can't get to it.
Right.
You come to discover by watching Perrault's death and this deal that he makes that the mermaid that he gives the shell back to is the mermaid who brings the Obra Dinn back to its home port. So with us being on the ship and walking around, and we see that exact same glowing light that we saw on the shells all this previous time throughout the entire game, we have to deduce that that light is coming from that mermaid because the shells belong to their bodies. Like, they are a bioorganic thing. And so it suddenly becomes extremely unnerving And I love that. That is such like a final, like, wonderful nightmare to leave us with.
It's
Truly.
so delightful. I loved that.
So good. What a just start to finish, what an excellent game.
Well, that's a great transition into our conclusions and sign-offs. So, gang, I want to know, how did we feel about Return of the Obra Dinn in terms of horror or queerness after our conversation? And do you have any other final thoughts for this episode?
Well, I would love to tell you that there are some achievements associated with this game, and because I platinumed it immediately after playing it for the first time, one of them requires you to play through the game, which means that you must discover all the fates, but you must answer that the captain did it to all of them, so you must blame Witterell for every single death, and the report you get from the East India Company is really hard to read. And Jane Bird is like, fuck you and the horse you rode in on, you asshole. That's not what happened. Because you even have to be like, oh no, the captain killed Jane. The captain killed Henry. The captain killed Jane. The captain killed everyone.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's wild.
But it's not entirely incorrect either. Because, like, if you... Like, because, David, I didn't know about, like, you have to say that the captain killed Jane and Henry. But I thought for, like, clearly everyone that died... Because I found out about that achievement too. It's okay to say that the captain killed them because, by and large, like, it's not
his
wrong.
Responsibility.
He's responsible for the safety of the ship, the crew, the passengers on board. So, like, kind of, sort of right, but also not. And so I love that they made room for that. That's so smart and
That's
so
funny. I again played on the Switch, so we don't get achievements. I'd love to know more about what the achievements are like.
Beyond that one, which is special, it's just play the game.
Yeah.
Which is great.
If I could talk about our queerness in this video game, because we ended up not talking too much about queerness, but we kind of started off by saying it's difficult to do that because we don't know too much of the interiority of the crew here. Yeah. But so if I could go back and I made a slightly different game, I would have liked to have had the addition of some, like, letters or manuscripts or something that could provide clues, gives us an idea of who is speaking to who and how we speak to them, because that also determines class. But it also would tell us more about the connections and relationships that these people have in their normal day-to-day lives, which would have allowed for the opportunities for talking about your relationship with another man and how maybe that's not like a romantic sense or a sexual sense, but it is some sort of emotional connection that is kind of queer. It's also difficult to assign queerness to this time period because queerness as we know it today did not exist at that time. So it would kind of be like a proto same-sex relationship, but it's not gay, it's not lesbian, it's not bisexual, because those terms did not exist at the time. And whenever we're talking about historicity, we kind of have to be mindful of that. But having said that, I think we do have enough material within the game that can tell us about how people react to other people in their own class, how these men react to the deaths of other people when they are from more tragic, mundane causes like an illness or an accident. And by doing so, it tells us who these people are and how they feel about each other. And I think that is very queer, and it adds like a lot of opportunities for queerness. And I think I said this a little earlier. I think Pope does a great job of creating like emotion or pathos about members of the crew, which is really impressive considering the graphical restrictions. Like, this is not The Last of Us. This is looking like it was on a Macintosh computer in the 80s. So for him to be able to do that is quite impressive.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, like, while we're talking about Lucas Pope, who, again, incredible game, incredible job. I know that he doesn't really do sequels, it seems like. But, like, my God, I would give almost anything for another game with like this the same mechanic and aesthetic. I just think that this investigator solving some other kind of mystery would be so fucking rad.
It's one of those things that actually makes me think of Ryan Coogler in Sinners, because Sinners like has such a wonderful world inside of it.
Yes.
And it just is begging to be like franchised, and we find out what all these different cultures think about, like music and vampires and what other supernatural monsters are out there. But Coogler has talked about, like, I'm not interested in that. I want to just talk about my next film, not a sequel. I've already talked about that. I've said everything I wanted to say. I'm going to move on. And that feels relatable here because, Marilee, I'm exactly with you. I would love to have more games set in this world. I would love to have our prequel about Henry Evans, but it doesn't seem likely to happen. And I respect the artistic integrity to say, I have told the story I wanted to tell, and now I'm going to move on.
Yeah. Like, for the Sinners example, I do feel like there is going to be more stuff set in that world. It's just, later on the line. I would love to get more stuff here later down the line as well. I just think that the thing about mysteries that are so good, like this one is an incredible mystery, right? Is that the way that the sequels generally work in a mystery series is that it's the same detective with like the same mechanics, but set in a completely different location, which is why things like the Knives Out sequels, I've always been really upset that it's a Knives Out mystery when it should be a Benoit Blanc mystery in the more classic mystery detective style. And I think that this is begging for that.
Yeah, I think what you've got, though, is you've got an auteur.
Yeah.
And what Pope excels at is finding a new way to tell a story with different mechanics.
Yes.
And
it's probably not going to happen, but God, I'd love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all so much for listening to this episode. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Don't sacrifice your pet monkey to get a glimpse into what we're doing. It's open to everyone on Instagram and Blue Sky at FearCodedPod.
This podcast is a proud part of the Glitterjaw Queer Podcast Collective. If you'd like to listen to more queer media podcasts, you can check out the full roster of Glitterjaw shows at glitterjaw.com. And join us next time when I finally admit to Marilee and Tyler that I'm sick of your laughing, I'm sick of your snoring, and you goddamn farts, as we discuss the 2019 film The Lighthouse. But for now, we will simply say goodbye.
Bye.
Yeah, sorry for blowing out the audio on that one, but that deserves it.